Hi, this is Moses Baker from the YouTube channel Moses B. I'm the son of Matt Baker, and today I'll be guest narrating for him in order to show you the family tree of Charles Darwin, one of the most important scientists of all time. He died exactly 140 years ago this week, but what a lot of people don't know is that his family tree includes a lot of other famous and interesting people as well, starting from the 1700s and going all the way to today. I'll be using this family tree chart, which was created by a fan of this channel and posted over on the Useful Charts subreddit, where you can find lots of other fan-made charts as well. But first, let me tell you about this week's sponsor, MyHeritage. If you want to learn about your own family tree, then MyHeritage is a website you'll definitely want to check out. As a Useful Charts viewer, you can get a 14-day free trial and then 50% off your subscription. Just click the link in the description or pinned comment. All you need to get started is the name of your parents and grandparents, and even if you don't know that information, you can simply order a MyHeritage DNA test and discover some close relatives that way. Once you've entered yourself and a few others on your tree, MyHeritage does the rest. See that box labeled Discovery? Well, all you have to do is click on that and MyHeritage will automatically suggest ways in which you can add more relatives to your tree. They do this by comparing your tree to other people's trees, as well as searching the over 16 billion records that they give you access to. You can also use MyHeritage to print your tree using several different chart formats and even use their site to animate old photos. So, why wait? Sign up for your free trial right now by using the link in the description or the pinned comment. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice about the Darwin family tree is that it is closely connected to the Wedgwood family tree. Wedgwood being the maiden name of Charles Darwin's wife, Emma. However, Charles himself was actually a Wedgwood descendant. He and his wife Emma were actually first cousins. Emma was the child of Josiah Wedgwood II, whereas Charles was the child of Josiah II's sister Susanna. This means that both Emma and Charles shared a grandfather in common, Josiah Wedgwood I. Josiah Wedgwood was the founder of the Wedgwood Fine China Company, which still exists today and is one of the most well-known makers of English pottery. However, in addition to being an inventor and entrepreneur, Josiah Wedgwood was also one of England's leading abolitionists during the 18th century, working to end slavery, which was finally banned by the UK in 1807. He created this medallion, which was the forerunner of all of those political pinback buttons that you see today. Many of Josiah Wedgwood's descendants went on to become famous in their own right. For example, his son Thomas was one of the early pioneers in the field of photography, and his great-granddaughter Frances was an author who was associated with first-wave feminism. The family also produced many business leaders and politicians, and eventually it split into two main lines, each with a hereditary title. So now we have the Baron Wedgwoods and the Baronet Wedgwoods. The noted historian C.V. Wedgwood was a member of the Baronet line, but this video is primarily concerned with the Darwins, not the Wedgwoods, so let's go back to Josiah Wedgwood I. Like I said, Emma Darwin descends from him via his son Josiah II, whereas Charles Darwin descends from him via his daughter Susanna. Let's now look at Charles Darwin's paternal side, starting with his great-grandfather Robert Darwin. Robert was both a lawyer and a physician, and he is notable for being involved with one of the earliest dinosaur discoveries. Although technically what he found wasn't actually a dinosaur, it was the first ever skeleton of a plesiosaur, a marine reptile that lived during the Jurassic period. But that's still pretty cool considering the famous theory that his great-grandson would go on to develop. Robert had 7 children, one of whom was Erasmus Darwin, who also became a physician. But Erasmus was more than just a doctor. He was also a philosopher, a poet, an inventor, and like Josiah Wedgwood, an abolitionist. In fact, he and Josiah Wedgwood became good friends, in part because of their shared interest in ending slavery. One of the most interesting things about Erasmus Darwin is that his poetry contained certain ideas that anticipated the theory of evolution. Erasmus's son Robert became the third Darwin in a row to become a physician. By now, the family had become quite wealthy, and because of this, Robert was able to pay for his son Charles to join an all-around-the-world expedition on a ship called the Beagle. Robert had wanted Charles to become a doctor like the previous 3 generations of the family, but Charles couldn't quite stomach it and therefore became interested in collecting specimens and developing theories about nature instead. Which was good because Charles Darwin, of course, due in part to his time on the Beagle, ended up developing the most important biological theory of all time, the theory of evolution. Now, I'm not actually going to spend any time on Charles Darwin's biography or on how he developed the theory of evolution because there are lots of other great resources out there to go through that. Instead, I'm going to continue to discuss his family tree. So, like I said earlier, Charles married his first cousin Emma from the Wedgwood family. In fact, Charles' sister Caroline had earlier married Emma's brother, Josiah Wedgwood III. So we actually get two Wedgwood-Darwin marriages in the same generation. Note that one of Caroline Darwin's grandchildren, Ralph Vaughan Williams, went on to become a famous composer. Now, Charles and Emma had 10 children, though 2 died in infancy and 1, named Annie, died at age 10. An event that had a profound effect on both parents. As you might imagine, many of Charles Darwin's descendants went on to become scientists as well. For example, his second son George developed some important ideas within the field of astronomy, and then his son Charles became a physicist. He even worked on the Manhattan Project, which was the project that led to the development of nuclear weapons during World War II. His daughter Cicely, who is still living, worked as a physicist as well, and his son George was an early computer scientist. Their brother Henry, however, took a different route, becoming a lawyer and a diplomat. However, Henry's eldest child, Sophia, became a mathematician, and therefore we still have a Darwin working in academia to this day, which is pretty cool. Note that George Pember Darwin married a woman named Angela, whose maiden name was Huxley. If that name sounds familiar, it's because Angela's father was the brother of the famous author Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World. And their grandfather was Thomas Huxley, who was known as Darwin's Bulldog. He got that nickname because he so strongly advocated for the theory of evolution. So that's an interesting connection between the Darwin and Huxley families. Now, if we go back to Charles Galton Darwin, we'll find a connection to another famous family. You'll notice that Charles had a sister named Margaret, who married a man named Sir Geoffrey Keynes. Sir Geoffrey was the brother of John Maynard Keynes, the famous economist that the Keynesian economics is named after. So keep in mind that everyone on this chart who is a descendant of Sir Geoffrey is also a descendant of Charles Darwin through his granddaughter Margaret. This includes Stephen Keynes, who served for many years as the chairman of the Charles Darwin Trust, and Randall Keynes, who currently sits on the board of that same organization. You might recognize Randall's son Skandar, who played Edmund in the Narnia movies. Let's now look at some other interesting connections. Erasmus Darwin had a second wife named Elizabeth, and together they were the parents of Frances Anne Darwin, who thus would have been the half-sister of Charles' father Robert Darwin. Elizabeth married a man named Samuel Galton, and together they were the parents of Francis Galton, who is generally known as being the father of eugenics. So basically, Charles Darwin and Francis Galton were first cousins, and Galton used Darwin's ideas to come up with the idea of eugenics. Now, eugenics is not something that any decent person today would want to have anything to do with. It's the extremely racist idea that some people are better than others, and that the human race could be improved by selective breeding, something that the Nazis were heavily into. Sadly, this idea was picked up and promoted by Charles Darwin's own son Leonard as well, who succeeded Francis Galton as the chairman of the British Eugenics Society. However, it is important to note that Charles Darwin himself disagreed with Galton's ideas, and also that the theory of evolution in no way necessitates accepting the idea of eugenics. Thankfully, eugenics fell out of favor after World War II, and is nowadays considered both immoral and invalid. The last branch of the family I'd like to point out descends from Charles Darwin's third son, Sir Francis Darwin, who followed most closely in his father's footsteps, becoming a botanist. His descendants include several poets, writers, and artists, including Robin Darwin, former head of the Royal College of Art, and Matthew Chapman, who, among other things, helped start the website sciencedebate.org, which helps get US politicians to state their positions on science-related issues prior to elections. Now, before I go, I want to show you one last connection. If you're at all interested in evolutionary biology, you're probably familiar with this guy here, Richard Dawkins, who in 1982 coined the word meme. Well, surprise, surprise, there is actually a genealogical connection between Dawkins and Darwin. If you go up 6 generations from Richard Dawkins, you come to his great-great-great-grandfather, Henry Dawkins. He married the Lady Juliana Collier, who, lo and behold, was the sister of Elizabeth Collier, the second wife of Erasmus Darwin. So, that was a look at Charles Darwin's family tree. If you want to have a closer look at the chart, which includes many more descendants that I wasn't able to point out, I'll leave a link to it in the description. Like I said, it was created by a fan of the channel and posted on our subreddit, where you can find lots of other fan-made charts as well. And speaking of which, I'd like to let you know that we are currently having a contest running right now on that subreddit. Basically, anyone is free to submit a chart inspired by this YouTube channel, and this summer, we're going to choose the best one and make it available for sale as a poster on the Useful Charts website, with the creator sharing in the profits. So if that sounds like something you might like to participate in, be sure to check it out. And finally, don't forget to take advantage of the 14-day free trial over at MyHeritage. Start exploring your family tree right now by clicking the link in the description or pinned comment. Thank you for watching.